Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Vitamin B Show. I have a very special guest for you today, and her name is Natalie Jill. She has over 3 million followers on all of her social media platforms and about 500,000 followers on Instagram alone. She is a best-selling author, and she helps women age in reverse, as well as level up in all areas of their lives. She is a fat loss expert turned high performance coach and the founder of Aging in Reverse community. So welcome to the podcast, Natalie. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Brittany.
I love it. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're excited to create in the world?
Sure. I always say I'm just like everybody else. I mean, about 12 years ago, I just had my daughter. I was in my mid 30s at the time. I'm 48 now. I was working in corporate America as a sales director. And I thought I had this, perfect life. Like things were working out pretty good for me until they weren't. And this was back in 2008, 2009 in the stock market and the housing market. A lot of things had gone wrong at that time. And I was shaken up to my core. I found myself, going through a divorce, realizing I was going to be a new single mom, in a massive financial mess, and which spiraled me into a depression. And I had gained a lot of weight. I just had been depressed. I'd gained a lot of weight. And I was the farthest thing that I could be from somebody who should be a coach now or a fitness model or anyone representing health and fitness at that time. That's just not who I was. And when everything just sort of started falling apart in my life, so much was going wrong. The only thing that was keeping me going was that I was a new mom and I had this baby to look after. So I remember turning to the internet and thinking, if I can't fix what's going on in my world, I can at least fix what's going on in my body, because it was one thing I could control. I knew I could control what I was doing with my body, and I knew I could control what I was eating. So I really started diving into nutrition and fitness as a control thing, as a way to have sanity and take care of something. And what I found is what many women find when they jump online is a lot of information overload, a crazy amount of information overload. So I dove in and I started to figure some things out and I simplify it, and they started to work. And I turned to Facebook at the time, which at that time I had maybe 100, 200 high school friends on my Facebook page. But I remember posting on there and saying, okay, I'm in this really lousy spot in my life, but this is what I'm going to do. And I'm turning here for accountability. I'm going to post what I'm eating, what I'm doing every day. If you're into it, awesome. But I'm doing it for my own accountability. It was truly for my own benefit at that time. But what happened was really unbelievable, and it really changed my whole life. What happened was my vulnerability and authenticity around what I was going through attracted so many women, and countless women were inspired by that and moved and wanted to follow along and know what I was eating, what I was doing, wanted to know all the things. So I would share, and that led me into my very first ebook, because people were asking, like, how do you eat these things? How do you put this together? And I created a very first recipe book, which really took off, which led to then creating what I call now my 7-Day Jumpstart, which is an ebook initially. It's a best-selling book in stores now, but it was an ebook initially, which women were completely moved to, like, this is amazing. And just by me sharing and being real and teaching it, it launched my entire business, that one first product. And that's where things started for me.
I love that. And I love that you talked about sharing your journey authentically, because I think that so many people have so many fears around what people will think of them. And what people want these days is realness. They don't want to see all this perfectness. They want that authenticity. Like, how important is it to grow your brand online in the 21st century rooted in authenticity?
I think it's everything, but I also think it's become this like buzzword, vulnerability and authenticity, that can get used very wrong. Like, to be honest, I don't want to scroll social media and see some like hideous picture of somebody crying, miserable, just to be authentic. Like, that to me sounds very fake and staged and doesn't really serve anyone. I think what people really want is more the hero's journey. So they want to know that somebody's real, that they've gone through something, and that they're sharing from a place of knowledge and caring and connection versus like, I need to make I can't stand when I see a post that the first line is warning, vulnerable post. Like, just by saying that, you're like, it's staged to me. So it's just being who you are. And a true, authentic, vulnerable person is going to walk the walk with what they're going through and share that from a place of power. And that's the approach that I've taken. And it's why I've shifted and pivoted my brand many times, because if it's not something I'm personally walking through and mastering, it's not worth me sharing and teaching.
Yeah, no, that's so true. So how does one share what's going on with them? Like, how do you create that balance between sharing what's going on and not sharing too much?
I mean, I think it's really an individual answer, and it depends. But I would ask anyone listening, like, why are they on social media? And to really ask yourself that question and go deep on that. Because if you're on it for a popularity contest, don't even bother, because that's
Yeah.
not really going to work. Because then it's very much about you, and it's a constant motive about you, and that doesn't translate to sales or followers or people.
Yeah.
Really look at what are you offering, and is it a value, and then coming from that place. It's really challenging. I've kind of lost interest in a lot of social media, even though my business heavily relies on it, and that's where I've met a lot of connections, including you. I met from social media. It's
Yeah.
been very important. I personally am turned off to the constant pitching over and over again from everybody about, it's like written the same way. And it's like, it feels like it goes through stages. Like first it was ebooks, now it's the coaching and the masterminds. It's like, but everyone's writing the exact same way, and it loses its interest. So to me, vulnerability and authenticity is not trying to be something. It's just
Yeah.
being. It's like, there's a difference, like just being and walking through what you're walking through and sharing that, not trying to be something.
Yeah. So what else would you say is important to build a powerful brand? Because you've built a staple in this space and you built a very powerful brand. What else would you say is that key to be able to do that?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One, it's a hyper focus obsession. It has to be. What you are obsessed about will grow. And
Okay.
there is no shortcut to this. You can't buy social media followers. I mean, you can. It's not going to translate to sales or real loyal people. You can't fake the system. It really comes from an obsession and making it your biggest focus. Like, so really diving into like, why am I here? What am I offering? How am I serving? And really coming from a place of serving and looking out. If you are focused out on what you're helping to create for others in helping people, that's what shines through. If you make it all about like, just I want to grow or I want to be popular, that doesn't work.
No. So what has been your secret to success in business?
I don't think there's a secret to it. It's truly caring and hard work. I mean, it's really, and when I say hard work, that doesn't mean like you have to work 100 hours a week or anything like that. That's not what I mean, but really being aware and hyper present when you are working and being really effective. So really diving into who am I attracting and why am I attracting them? And what do they need? What's their biggest pain point and problem? And how can I offer to relate, support, and help? So it's really asking those questions and treating it that way and adding value. I can tell you any offer I make on my social media, it's truly coming from a place of helping first, way
Yeah.
before it helps me. So like, for instance, with my aging in reverse community, I believe and I know with every drop of my soul that that's helpful to women. So me
Yeah.
promoting it doesn't feel like promoting. I feel like I'm helping because I know it's the answer. Now, if I was approaching it from how do I make money, that wouldn't work.
Yeah. No, I love that. So, what is one of the biggest struggles that you see with women? Like, what is it that when they achieve that breakthrough, they're able to get to that next step?
So women have a lot of what I call excess fat. And I don't mean fat on our bodies. The fat I'm referring to is called a fat, F-A-T, false assumed truths. And these are these
Yeah.
beliefs that we've held on to that limit us and stop us from achieving great things. And women are loaded with them. They're called false assumed truths and they're everywhere. So examples of that are I'm too old, it's too late, there's too many people already doing this, I don't have enough money, I don't have this, I don't have that. It's anything that goes into victim mode. And I'm really big on that victim responsibility conversation. So anytime
Yes.
we're falling into a blame game or a reason or justifying, then we are in victim mode and it doesn't help us with any goal. So those are called false assumed truths, and we have to bust through those in order to achieve anything. And I would say that with every aspect of your life. It
Mhm.
starts with fat loss and nutrition. That was what people had to bust through. They had to get rid of that belief that it's their metabolism or it's their genetics, or because the second you say it's my genetics, so I'm this, then there is no hope because you've really believed that and limited yourself.
Yeah.
So Same thing with my money. And I've been in that money story many, many times in my own life, where you're operating from a place of, I don't have, and I'm not worthy of it. And if you stay stuck there, then you're not going to break through and have amazing things. So the number one thing, going back to your question, would be breaking through those false assumed truths, like really getting outside of those false assumed truths, because those are what are holding you back in your life. A big reason I started the Aging in Reverse community is I'm 48 years old, and I can't tell you how many
You do
times.
not look 48.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you. How
Y'all
many
better head to
times?
her Instagram and check it out.
But constantly I get that reaction. And what's so funny to me is I'm like, but what's 48 supposed to look like? Like, to me, this is what it's supposed to look like. So we have a massive false assumed truth going on in our society that 48 is supposed to look old and too late. It's not. So that's what really brought my awareness of this is like, no, we all are thriving at that age. You can be thriving at that age. We have to drop that belief that that's too old.
I love that. So how do people master their mindset? Like, I feel like you're so right. It's these excuses that hold people back. And the reason why excuses are so dangerous is because people actually believe them. So it's not an excuse, it's a reality for them. So how do people recognize when they're making excuses? And then how do they really take on that conversation of accountability versus victim mindset?
Well, that's a really big question, but I'll tell you right now, if you're listening to this and you're triggered right now, but you're coming up with all the reasons you're mad at what I'm saying, then you are 100% in victim mentality. Because if I'm triggering a button, it's because you're defensive about something. So I'm going to point that out, and I'm used to it. I'm used to triggering people, and it doesn't matter to me because I'm standing for the greater good. So I see people's potential. I am not going to buy into what the story that they've created of why something's not possible. My gosh, my podcast, Leveling Up, Creating Everything from Nothing, I've featured over 124 guests at this point of people that achieved massive success from the worst imaginable setbacks. Like, I featured a woman that was paralyzed and told she'd never walk again. Talk about having a massive excuse. She chose not to validate it. She didn't want to hear it. She's now a walking paraplegic. So I'm saying, by the second we validate an excuse and say, you're right, that sucks, I'm not being a coach. I'm basically making you feel better in a moment, and that does not serve your higher purpose. It doesn't help you. So how do we help people? Number one, you got to recognize that you're the problem. You have to. And I say that with love. I know I don't sound like it's a loving statement, but I really mean that, because if I'm complaining about something, I do not want someone to say, you're right, that sucks. Because yes, that feels good in the moment. It does not help me get better. So number one, you got to recognize that, and you have to decide that you want something different. It's really critical. That method is very clear to me. Like, you have to make a decision, draw a line in the sand. I'm done being broke. I'm done being overweight. I'm done being in a bad relationship, whatever that is. And then really get clarity on what's your vision. What is it that you want? So if you can start with those two things, decide what's your decision and what are you declaring? And then what is your vision for what you want? And most women get stuck there. They say, I don't have a clue what I want. And so what I'm going to ask you, if you're thinking that, look at what you don't want first, and then let's go with the opposite there. And then once you're clear on your vision, they always say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And that I believe that full-heartedly. And one big reason I created the Aging in Reverse community, and the very first thing we do in there is go through a dive challenge where we walk through and figure out what are those false assumed truths holding you back in every area of your life.
That's so powerful. So what else do you think is the most important aspect to becoming a good coach? I mean, your reputation speaks for itself, and I've heard some amazing things about your capacity to become a high performance coach. Like, what is it that you've had to adopt or overcome that's allowed you to become powerful at being able to help people change their life?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I don't know that there was a thing or a way. But I've been through a lot. I've experienced a lot. I've grown and lost everything twice in my life, like massively. Like, I was $1.4 million in debt when I was 36 years old. I rebuilt everything I built. I rebuilt and grew a a multiple seven-figure business, had that tank and rebuilt again. So I've literally been through a lot myself. So I'm experienced there, and I know it, and I know what works and what doesn't work. But that's not what makes me a strong coach. What makes me a strong coach is I have the ability to see in somebody and pull out their unique ability and unique strength and help them overcome what's holding them back, their false assumed truth, so they can level up and really shine in that spot. So zeroing in on that. So many times people are so stuck on figuring out what that is within themselves.
Yeah. How do you pull it out of them?
It's connection. It's really getting intimate with them and understanding first. I mean, there's not a specific like, oh, I do these, like so many coaches do that. They have like their same 10 questions. I don't do that. I really talk with people. I get to know them the same way I do on my podcast, really pulling out what's making them tick. And it's an awareness that they're going to have by when I'm directing them down with the questions.
How do you help them achieve that awareness?
By connecting and going deep with them and understanding. It's getting people to talk, really to look at their life, look at what's working, what's not, getting rid of stories.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's such an interesting topic for me, because I think that's exactly it is people create these stories and these perceptions that are disempowering them. And the beauty about coaching is you get to offer a new perspective, and they get to try on different perspectives. And then they get to decide which is their favorite pair of jeans, like which is their favorite perspective that is going to empower them and be able to help them create happiness and success in their life. Because that's what I think all people are really striving for is happiness and success in whatever area of their life that their highest level priorities lie in. So it's all about perspective. How important do you think perspective is, and what perspectives do you think that allow people to empower themselves to live better lives? Like, what perspectives are important to adopt?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think it's just shutting up and listening. I mean, being open, like actually hearing and not being defensive. See, so many people tend to be so stuck in victim mode that I don't even know that they should hire a coach until they're willing to step out of that. Because if you hire a coach and then you're going to get defensive on why you believe, my question back would always be to anyone that says that is that working for you? Because if something's working for you, you don't need a perspective shift. If something's not working for you, then it's time to actually listen and share and get guidance.
How important is it to be coachable?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, there's plenty of people succeeding that are not coachable. And if they're happy and succeeding, then that's amazing. They can coach. They don't need to be coachable. But I would say most people that have experienced significant growth and are making a difference in the world, they somehow are being coached and are coachable.
I love that. That's so powerful. And I think that's a really important aspect in life is people say is to be coachable, but it's like, are you open for growth? Are you open to working on leveling up your mindset and being able to look at all the bones in your closet? Because I know personally, like when I first started getting involved in personal development, I was not like very coachable at all. It was very closed off. And then for me, I really had to put the ego aside and humble myself to be like, there's so many people in this world that know more than I do. And I may be an expert in one field, but there's so many other areas where you can always improve. I mean, there's always an opportunity to level up. So I'm just a big believer in coaching. I think that it's a really important aspect to focus on in life. And I love what you're doing for women. And I think that it's so important that you're on this mission to help change people's lives, and you're in it for the right reasons and you genuinely care about them. So I think that's so important. And I know that you talk about control versus surrender. What does that mean to you? Like how can people take your ideology about that and create a better life from it?
So most people think that when things are not going right in their life, they have to control. Like, I've got to fix it all. And control is what creates anxiety. It creates stress. It creates depression. It creates disease. Trying to control everything is, first of all, it's a total illusion. It's not possible. We can't control everything. Like, the world will go on without your control. Like everything in life goes on without your control. And it's really critical to notice that, because the default, especially for women, is to, when things aren't working with anything, their body, their relationship, their business, is to go to this ultimate control. And in that control is also stress, anxiety, depression, disappointment, expectations, false assumed truths. There's a lot of stuff that comes up with control. And the answers don't come from control. From controlling more, we don't get answers. And I want to keep repeating that, because that's really, really critical for people to know. Nothing is actually able to be fully controlled. Nothing is.
Yeah.
So the answers, the change, the leveling up comes when you surrender. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is letting go of all of these past stories and beliefs and need to control it all, and just accepting what it is right now, today, the facts, like what is happening right now today, and surrendering to that, and then being fully present and connected with those moments to seek the answers. So that's where coaching would fall into play. Like if you're going to hire a coach from a control method, like, oh, I was told hire a coach and spend this and that will fix my business, you're still in a control situation. But hiring a coach with, okay, I'm laying it all on the table. This is where I am right now. This is where I'm stuck. I need guidance and help. That's a very strong reason to hire a coach. That's a surrender approach.
Yeah, no, I love that. What is your take on like the people pleasing and the fear and the judgments and just overall playing in that energy force?
Yeah, I think it's what's aging us big time, more so than our nutrition or our supplements or the sun or any of that. I think that stress is the most dangerous thing to our bodies, to our health, it's what makes us older quickly. It's the opposite of being present, connected, all those things. And when we are stuck in this conversation of making everybody happy, people pleasing, fear of judgment, that's just perpetuating that whole stress cycle. Yeah. So it's critical to recognize that and shift out of that.
I love that. Why is taking massive action overrated?
Why is taking because another good question, because we hear all the time, massive action gets success. Like that's a whole thing, like take massive action. What happens is people get stuck with that idea. Like if you think you have to take all this action, all these things, so much to make a change, what happens is we sometimes get paralyzed and don't start at all. Yeah. So what I want people to know is that one step forward, small baby steps every single day makes huge changes over time. So taking one step forward every single day, that's 365 steps in the right direction in a year.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. I completely agree with you. Analysis paralysis. And somebody once said this to me, and it really shifted the way that I perceive things. They said, stop aiming for A+ work and settle for B-. And that's something that used to keep me so stuck. When I dreamed about becoming the person that I am today and living out my dreams, I knew that I wanted to do all this stuff. Like I wanted to have a podcast, I wanted to have a mastermind, and I wanted to have a great group of friends. And I wanted all these different things. And the biggest thing that was holding me back was I wasn't taking action because I wanted it to be perfect, because I wanted it to look a specific way. And when I got that notion out of my head, and I was just like, okay, just little baby steps, like, and the thing that's helped me so much is I always plan for something small. Like I have a big event on Sunday, but I just planned for something small. And I gave myself so much room to mess up. I'm like, okay, this is the first time I'm going to do this type of event. I'm going to tell the speakers, I'm going to tell the organizers, guys, just plan for changes. And so it just allowed me so much freedom and so much ability to relinquish anxiety and like stress that it had to be perfect, to be like, it's fine. It's going to be awesome. And if it isn't, there's going to be another event.
Totally.
It took away all of that stress and anxiety. And it was really, really powerful for me. So I love that you said that, because it goes against the grain of what a lot of people are saying, but it's the truth. If you're not going to take these small actions, you're not going to get to where you want to go.
So I want to clarify that a little bit though. So yes, take small actions, just start. However, once you figure out your message and your target and it's simple, and that's really critical. Every method has to be simple It has to be clear. It
Control.
has to be very like laser focused. Once you know what that is, the critical step that people mess up on is they don't go all in and perfect that. So I do like that obsession and perfection once you know what that is. That is critical. If you do not do that, it will not last. That's success. You have to get obsessive on that.
Yeah, that's so, so, so true. So how can you create a vision board to kind of tune into your subconscious?
Yeah, I love vision boards, and I talk about them in all of my programs. It's the first thing that changed me when I was in my rock bottom spot. And it's the exact same thing I did 2 years ago when I was having issues in my business. I do one every probably 6 months. Vision boards are amazing. Sometimes we can't evoke feelings of success. So see what happens, Brittany, when someone has been successful at one time, they can envision getting back to it. They can just take it even to weight loss. If you were fit and thin at one time and you get away from it, you will always get back to it because you remember what it felt like. If you've never been fit or thin or felt good about yourself, it's a lot harder to get there because you can't even envision what it felt like. Same thing with money or with business. If you want to create a $10 million business and you've never done it before, you don't know what it feels like to be in that spot. So it's very hard to create. So what a vision board allows for is it allows for you to put images and pictures and things that evoke feelings and vision. And you can start to imagine that. If I stare at my vision board, and I did this 10 years ago, and I said, what would the girl on that vision board eat? What would she breathe? What would she listen to? What would she do with her time? If I would ask myself those questions, I could evoke those feelings and take action on those. I could take action on those. I remember at that time, I had nothing. I was $1.4 million in debt. I didn't have any extra money. I was a single mom. I was getting my house foreclosed on. I had everything going wrong in my life that could imagine, except I had this daughter. And I would stare at these images of the beach and I would think, oh, gosh, what would it be like to live at the beach? Well, I certainly couldn't afford a house at the beach, but what did I do? I would stare at that picture and I would go walk at the beach, and it evoked those actions. Right now, as I talk to you and I look at my vision board, I've got a private jet on there. I don't own a private jet, but I look at that picture every dang day and say, what decisions would the guy that owns that private jet, how would he spend his time today? Who would he talk to today? Who would he empower? What would he read? What would he learn? And I ask myself those questions. If I didn't stare at that vision board, that would be very hard to do.
Oh, of course. Well, it's knowing the destination. And it's like goal setting is massively underrated, but it's like if you don't have those goals crystal clear, how are you ever going to realize them? How are you ever going to believe in yourself to get there? Because that's half the battle is believing in yourself. Because when you believe you're worth it and you believe you can do it, you're going to stop at nothing
Totally
to get there. And so I completely agree with you. So why is validating excuses a short-term solution?
Yeah, because validating an excuse feels good in the moment. If you say, I'm broke, and I say, oh, that sucks. Or you say, algorithms don't work. I'm not getting reach on my social. You're right, that sucks. Or I can't lose weight. My doctor told me I have this diagnosis. And I say, you're right, that sucks. Then I'm validating your excuse and I'm making you feel good in the moment. It does nothing to change your result at all. Nothing. So I won't validate. Instead, I'm going to dig with people and help them find a solution, because there's always a solution. And I've got news for everyone. It's not the algorithms. It's not your genetics. It's not your metabolism. It's not your husband. It's not your friend. It's not the market changing. It's you. And I say that again with love, because we only have ourselves that we can change and control. We cannot control everything else. So if something's not working, we've got to look inside.
Yeah, that's so true. How come it's so hard for people to really look inside and be
Because
like,
it's not comfortable.
This is a me problem.
Because people want to stay comfortable. And I will tell you, the universe works in really fun ways. If you fight it, you will have to surrender at some point, because something will happen. You'll either get a disease, there'll be an accident, something will happen until you get this. I believe that we are here to understand this and to connect with others, to be helpful to others, to serve, to surrender, to see the bigger picture. I believe that's why we're here. And if we stay stuck in victim mentality and we don't make changes, we will be forced at some point to surrender. I do believe that.
Yeah. No, that's so true. What does surrendering look like?
Surrendering to me looks like dropping the stories and the excuses and looking at the facts of today and where you are right now, what's happening right now, and the reality of that,
Yeah.
and being open to outside help.
What do you think is a self-imposed stop?
So self-imposed stop is what happens when you take on those false assumed truths, the belief that something's not possible, and you own that belief, and it stops you from getting results. So if you say, I always lose money, that becomes a self-imposed stop, and you won't break through it. Or no matter what I try, I always gain back the weight. That's a self-imposed stop. Or the algorithms on social media are not working. Okay, that might be your case today, but that's you're stopping yourself from being creative and looking at other options because you're literally stopping it with an excuse.
Yeah. So how do you get clear about your goals?
You get clear about your goals by starting with what is it that you want, like getting clear on your vision, and not just like, I want to be happy, because that's a cop out, but really like, what is it that you want? And then going deeper into the why do I want it? Figuring out your driving core motivator behind it. So like really looking at, like, if your goal is just, I want to have $1 million business, for instance, that's not enough to move you. Like, what's the why behind that? What are you going to do with that $1 million? What does that look like? What does it feel like? Because there's many people with $1 million business that are not happy. Their expenses overseed what they're getting. They're working harder than they ever imagined. There's a lot of reasons that wouldn't work. And then there's some people with $1 million business that are thriving in life and happy that they've got that. So I would really challenge people to think, why do you want what it is that you're stating? What does that feel like? What does it look like? What does it smell like? How does that all imply working in your life? Get really clear on that. And once you're super clear, you can get dialed in on how to get to your goal to happen.
I love that. So how do you incorporate gratitude into that?
So gratitude is something that doesn't come necessarily easy to me, because I think I'm wired, like many people are wired, to look at what's wrong first. And it's been a practice in looking at possibility and what's right. And gratitude plays a huge role in that, because if I can every day find the gratitude in whatever's happening and shift my mood from blame and victim to the gratitude in why things are happening for me, it makes a whole different perspective on life and on things. Like I've really dropped the language I have to into I get to. So I used to say things like, I have to go pick up my daughter from school. But the bottom line is, I'm very fortunate that I get to pick my daughter from school. Like that I have the type of career that I can leave whenever I want and go spend time with her. You know, my daughter and I, every time I pick her from school, her school is like a good 35 minutes from my house. So I found, you know, that used to be a pain in my butt. Like I used to look at it as, oh my gosh, that's like an hour and 10 minutes twice a day. That's 2 hours and 20 minutes of a waste of my time and my day. That was how, and I think a lot of parents approach it like that, but I really switched that. So my drive to go get her and to go pick her up, I listen to a podcast. So that's my time to listen to a podcast. Then when I get her, I'm full attention on her, and we either are talking about her day and I'm really listening and involved in that conversation, or she's a DJ in my car and we're jamming out to music and having fun. So to me, I get to go get my daughter on those days and those times, and I get to listen to a podcast on my way. I do not use that time to return phone calls. I don't use that time to be working. I very rarely in the car, unless it's absolute emergency, will pick up a work call when she's in it with me. It is very much like I get to do this with her.
Yeah. That's so super powerful. So how do you balance it all? Like, you are a woman of many talents. How do you be able to juggle it and create what you've been able to create?
So I don't look at it as a balance thing. I look at it as I've gotten very good at saying no and saying yes to what I want to do. So anything that I do not want to do in life, I don't do it. I'm really clear about that. So the question I'll ask and I get opportunities thrown at me all the time. I will always take the time to be present and listen. But if there's any iota of this is not for me, or I don't get it, or it's not serving me and my audience, or I don't feel it, it's just a no. And I'm very selective with what I say yes to. So what I say yes to always fits into my vision. It's always something that I believe. It's always something that I enjoy doing, and where I found the gratitude in it. And so then it doesn't feel like I'm juggling and managing a million things. Now, I had years of where I felt like that, where I had too many people working for me, too many different things I was managing, always overwhelmed, always busy. And that wasn't a way to live. And that's what was aging me. And what's so amazing, Brittany, is like literally, like I just had a cover that got released yesterday.
I
And it's
saw.
thank you, my
Congratulations.
13th cover. And it was so funny, the comments I got from people about like, this is the best you've ever looked. What is your, and what the reason is I have this freedom now. That changed everything for me. Like I took on this idea of surrendering. I do not feel overwhelmed or busy anymore. I have moments of it, but overall I come back to that place, and it's been my method. I even tattooed the word surrender on my arm on my birthday last month, because I wanted
Wow.
to remember this and it was so important to me. So I have those moments of overwhelm and busy, but I've really gotten good at recognizing it and shifting it and helping others through that. Like when you and I just discussed doing this interview, I don't know, 2 days ago. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like we had to schedule it a month out, because I was like, okay, it fits into my vision. It's a priority. Like there's always time for those things that are in my vision and priority. If
Yeah.
I'll do it in 3 months, it's probably not important to me.
I love that. So how do you create freedom in your life? I feel like that's the one thing so many people are after is freedom, happiness, and success. Like how have you been able to create this level
Yeah.
of freedom that everyone desires?
It's a decision. It's literally starts with a decision. And that's what I walk people through in my 10-day dive challenge, by the way. In my aging reverse community, when they try out my aging reverse community, they get a 10-day trial with that dive challenge, is to walk through that, because everything is a decision and a choice, and you can start acting and operating from that place. Now, I do not let circumstances define me ever. And it's a battle. I'm not going to say that that's an easy thing. Every day there's real circumstances. Like there's real financial circumstances. There's real things happening. And I choose not to operate from the circumstance and instead operate from vision. It's a choice constantly.
That is so powerful. It's a constant choice. It's a state of being. It's a state of being in that consciousness. And I haven't really shared this that much, but I used to be heavily involved in everything that you're talking about. And I actually fell off the bandwagon for a little bit. I had a stressful situation happen to me in my life, and it challenged my mindset. And so, yeah, I mean, I backed myself, and I'm in a really, really, really good place now. But it was that understanding that it's a conscious decision every day. Like I thought, oh, I've been doing personal development since I was like 18 or 19. Like I got this on lockdown. Like, and what I realized is no, it's a personal choice. It's waking up every single day and choosing gratitude and choosing happiness and choosing to come from a place of responsibility and choosing to control your state of mind. I mean, happiness is a choice. I think
it's always a choice. It's always choosing. It's always, always, always choosing. And it's interesting, just like you're saying right now, that's why I got surrender tattooed on me, because I won't remember that all the time. But I look down at my arm and I'm like, dag nabbit, when I'm stressed, I'm like, oh, that's why I put that there. Choice will probably be the next word I add, but it's always, always a choice. And just like anyone that's challenging that. And I've had massive in my life financial turmoil. And I believe it's happened to me to challenge me and to get me to this place of surrender, because I have had to learn to operate as, because if you're making, let me just give anyone listening, because I know people can relate. If you're making, imagine you're making $5 million a year. Okay. And for years, and now you're not making that anymore. Does that make you any less intelligent or worthy? And that's a hypothetical question. But if you ask your friends, your family, your colleagues, no, it doesn't. You just had a hardship happen. Same thing, if you're fit and thin and thriving and now all of a sudden you're overweight, does that make you less worthy? No, you're still that same person. You're just now experiencing something different, and you're taking that on. So when you're stressed about whatever it is, and you go to the beach and you just walk on the beach, the water and the sand and the air and the people that are walking by you at the beach, they don't know if you're a billionaire or you're homeless. They don't know. You can be anything in those moments. So we spend so much time in our heads around that stress of what's going on. And really, it's just such a small part of our actual world. Like, deal with it as you have to deal with it. But the rest of your time in your life, like, you don't need to be dealing with that. You could be acting as if you're someplace else. And that's a choice. That's always a choice.